Okay.
Great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eloisa Ramos. We're here to study the course in miracles, and we're doing the text. And I'm here with Connie. Hi, Connie.
Hi.
And Sonia.
Hi.
And we left off on chapter 3, the innocent perception, and it's section 5, beyond perception. Paragraph 1. I have said that the abilities you possess are only shadows of your real strength, and that perception, which is inherently judgmental, was introduced only after the separation. No one has been sure of anything since. I
Yikes.
have also made it clear that the resurrection was the means for the return to knowledge, which was accomplished by the union of my will with the Father's. We can now establish a distinction that will clarify some of our subsequent statements. Okay, so let's see. In line 1, perception, okay, is inherently judgmental. So that's a good thing to remember. And what that means is that because it's judgmental, it's a matter of opinion, okay? So it's subjective, and therefore it's not absolute truth. And that's why it says in line 2, no one has been sure of anything since. And Connie understands that. So there's all this uncertainty because of judgment. And remember that we judge based on our past learning, and therefore any errors in our past learning are just going to be continuously perpetuated through our judgment. And that's how we that's how we maintain error, which is the belief in separation. If we don't question it and, give it to the Holy Spirit. And it also says that the resurrection was the means of the return to knowledge. And this was accomplished by the union of my will with the Father's. So when we judge, we're choosing to perceive rather than to know. And the accomplishment that is referred to here is the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which is the knowledge that as the Son of God, he could not be separate from God. So he could not be a body, and therefore he could not be subject to death. Hence the resurrection from the dead. And in doing that, he recognized the true will, which is our true will as the Son of God, but we seem to have other ideas about being able to oppose God's will with our will. And so the accomplishment of the union of my will with the Father's is bringing into alignment what is knowledge with what we accept to be true for us. Okay, so any questions there, Sonia? Because last time you had a question about the will.
No, I think it's becoming more clear.
Okay. All right, go ahead, take number 2.
Since the separation, the words create and make have become confused. When you make something, you do so out of a specific sense of lack or need. Anything made for a specific purpose has no true generalizability. When you make something to fill a perceived lack, you're tactily implying that you believe in separation. The ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. None of them is creative. Inventiveness is wasted effort, even in its most ingenious form. The highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations.
Okay. So, i- so here it wants us to notice how we use the words create and make, because it says that we've become confused when we use them. Okay. So when we make something out of a specific sense of lack or need, which is basically what we do in the world, okay, or even when we make things that we don't need, okay, we do it with the sense that we can convince someone they need them, like advertising can convince us that, we need, I don't know, plastic saran wrap or something like that, okay? So they invented plastic saran wrap. Um, so so that's a very specific need, and when we make anything out of a specific need, that it cannot be extended or generalized. It cannot be um, it cannot be extended to everything. So its usability, its purpose is not available to everyone. Okay, so um, so in other words, what would someone experiencing a drought in Africa, what would they do with saran wrap? Do you see what I'm saying? Because needs are specific. So when we make something to feel perceived lacked, we are tacitly implying that we believe in separation, because if we believe we are lacking something, we believe we have left the source of everything, because God is everything. God is wholeness. And only when we perceive separation, only when we perceive ourselves as separate, can we perceive ourselves as incomplete or lacking or needy in some way. Um, so, and what it wants to make sure is that we recognize that that's not how the course is going to use the word creative. Um, because true creation is abstract and it's available to everyone. So it's not meeting a specific need because it's coming from a place of recognizing that we are everything already. So it's not coming from a wanting, but it's coming from a joining with the will of God. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to read next, Connie? It's number 3.
I'm gonna
You're gonna pass?
on this turn. Yeah,
Okay, sounds good.
but I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. Knowing, as we have already observed, does not lead to doing. The confusion between your real creation and what you have made of yourself is so profound that it has become literally impossible for you to know anything. Knowledge is always stable, and it is quite evident that you are not. Nevertheless, you are perfectly stable as God created you. In this sense, when your behavior is unstable, you are disagreeing with God's idea of your creation. You can do this if you choose, but you would hardly want to do it if you were in your right mind. Okay. Okay, we'll just do line by line. So knowing, as we have already observed, does not lead to doing. Okay, because we've read before that perception is what leads to doing. And so knowing is understanding, and and understanding is wholeness, and wholeness has no need to do anything because everything is good. There's nothing to do. It's peace, it's inner peace, and it's inner joy, and it's that oneness. It's recognizing that oneness, and in that oneness, in that state of oneness, there's just being, because there's no fear to drive you to do anything. There's no needs to push you. There's no sense of there's no emotions like embarrassment or shame or anything like that that would lead you to act or try to, hide or whatever. So so the confusion between your real creation, which is just being, okay, we were created as beings, okay, to be whole and complete and happy. And that's part of, that comes with how we were created. We don't have to do anything to be happy. We don't have to work hard to possess things to feel complete or satisfied. But what we have made of ourselves, okay, is so profound that it becomes literally impossible for you to know anything. Okay, so the confusion between how we were really created and what we in our own thinking believe we are and think of ourselves to be. I can think of myself, well, I play the role of a mother. I have children, so that makes me a mother. Okay. Or, I have a female body, so that makes me a woman, or I'm I'm age whatever 60, so I'm a senior citizen, and I'm entitled to discounts now and that kind of stuff. So those are the things that I make of myself, and to know myself by those definitions is to split myself into different roles and different parts, which is separation. And it's unstable. So 3 says knowledge is always stable because it doesn't change, and it is quite evident that you are not. So if I keep changing roles, I'm going to have maybe one way that I behave with my children, and then I'm going to want to present a more quote unquote professional image with my clients. So my behavior is going to be different or something like that. But in truth, we are always perfectly stable as God created us. Okay, so in this sense, there is no change to what we are. But if our behavior is unstable, then what it says is that our perception, which is behind our behavior, is inconsistent and is in conflict. And if it is inconsistent and in conflict, then we are disagreeing with how we were created, because there's no stability there. I'm just going to be, applying my own ideas about how I should behave in this situation and how I should behave in this situation. And it's all based on judgment. And it says you could do this if you choose, but you would hardly want to if you were in your right mind. So right off the bat, if my behavior is not stable, I'm not going to be in my right mind, because if I'm in my right mind, I'm going to recognize the oneness of my Christ self-identity with all of creation. And when I do that, I refrain from judgment, which is perception. And if I refrain from judgment, which is perception, then my behavior is coming from guidance from my right mind, from the Holy Spirit. And therefore, it's going to be consistent because I have one guide who is connected to knowledge, to the truth. And that's what's going to come through. The stability and the peace. And, you know, it's going to be loving. I'm going to choose love consistently. Okay. So anything with that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So let's go ahead, Sonia, with number 4.
The fundamental question you continually ask yourself cannot properly be directed to yourself at all. You keep asking what it is you are. This implies that the answer is not only one you know, but it is also one that is up to you to supply. Yet you cannot perceive yourself correctly. You have no image to be perceived. The word image is always perception related and not a part of knowledge. Images are symbolic and stand for something else. The idea of changing your image recognizes the power of perception, but also implies that there is nothing stable to know.
Mhm. Okay, so we understand the idea of the self-image, right? Because with all the media, you know, people can promote a particular image of themselves by editing whatever it is that they're presenting. Okay, and so what ends up happening is that we then confuse ourselves with the image. It's a little bit like um, it's a little bit like an actor who is playing different parts. Okay, and these parts are the character, the image that he's putting forth in the movie. Okay, and pretty soon he's played so many different parts that he forgets, okay, well, who am I? I mean, who am I? I've been playing all these different roles, you know, that's been my career for, 50 years. So who the heck am I really? And so it says you keep asking what it is you are. Okay, but the question cannot be properly directed to the self, okay, because the self is that self that's asking the question obviously does not know the answer. So how can I define myself? How can I tell myself what I am if I don't know what I am? Um, and 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 so we tend to think in society that we can just make up who we want to be. And we call, when we use the word creating, we use the word create yourself, and when we ask a child, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? We're telling them, well, you can be anything you want. You can make yourself up. And we're forgetting, well, wait a minute, you're already created perfectly, by the way. Okay, so you don't have to make yourself into anything. If you already know what you are, it doesn't mean that you're not going to play roles still in the world, but you're not going to identify with those roles as yourself. And so because what we are in truth cannot be perceived. So what it says is you have no image to be perceived. So the self that's oneself, that's the Christ mind, cannot be perceived because perception is part of judgment and part of being perceiving separation. So that's why the word image is always perception related. because an image has boundaries. If you think about cartoons, well, those are images. Anything that's projected on a screen is an image. And they're not part of knowledge. The other way you can understand it is when you have a dream, everything in your dream is an image, and they're symbolic. Okay, so the images don't have meaning in and of themselves. So when you try to understand your dreams, if I have a dream and Sonia's in my dream, I'm not going to say, oh, Sonia, in my dream, you were doing this, this, and this. Why were you doing that? Okay. She's like, what? What the heck? I wasn't in your dream. So I have to look at, okay, well, Sonia's in my dream, but it's my dream. So that image of Sonia is a symbol for something in my own psyche, in my own, sense of what I think I am, to try to get to the meaning of the dream. Because it's my own thinking that's making it up, and it's using symbols that I am familiar with to represent that meaning. Yeah, so the idea that we can change our image recognizes the power of perception. Yeah, I mean, so you can, a lot of the movie stars or brands, right? A lot of the cosmetic brands, a lot of the people that promote different designer brands, that's what they're doing, is they're making an image, and that's the power of the perception, that it presents a particular image, but it's not stable. So that's why they come and go. So yeah. Any questions with that? No. Okay. Okay. Do you want to take number 5, Connie?
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Knowing is not open to interpretation. You may try to, quote unquote, interpret meaning, but this is always open to error because it refers to the perception of meaning. Such incongruities are the result of attempts to regard yourself as separated and unseparated at the same time. It is impossible to make so fundamental a confusion without increasing your overall confusion still further. Your mind may have become very ingenious, but as always happens when method and content are separated, it is utilized in a futile attempt to escape from an inescapable impasse. Ingenuity is totally divorced from knowledge because knowledge does not require ingenuity. Ingenious thinking is not the truth that shall set you free, but you are free of the need to engage in it when you are willing to let it go.
Yeah. Okay, so we tend to use the word creativity for ingenuity. So we can say, for example, I have a son who draws and who went to art school, and so we tend to think, oh, he's very creative, he's very imaginative. Okay, but if we use the word creative, we're going to be confusing ingenuity with creation. So God does not create with ingenuity. God is not a genius. Okay. But the ego thinks that it's a genius a lot of times, and we value that in the world quite a bit, right? Because we get all these, cool inventions and stuff. But it's not the truth that shall set us free. And it's not saying, well, don't engage in it. It's just saying you can engage in it if you are willing to let it go. So don't invest what you are, okay, into ingenuity. Don't believe yourself to be, well, I invented I don't know. I invented the light bulb. I'm a genius. Okay. Well, I just made myself into an image of ingenuity, and I'm making myself that my identity. Okay. That's all it's saying. It says, go ahead and bend everything you want. Okay. But don't confuse yourself as being that, what you are making. Okay. Um, so, because knowledge, true creation, does not require ingenuity, because it is an extension. It's not something that we come up with. It's not something that we figure out. It's part of the creative power that we are as life that comes from God. So it's the joining of our will with the will of God in co-creating the perfect, the beautiful, the joyful. So
I was just bringing to mind Elon Musk and how, you know, he's doing all these things in the world, but that it's really coming from God, and we all have, you know, all of this, all of these powers.
oh,
Well,
yeah. So remember at the very first line of the paragraph, it says, I have said that the abilities you possess are only shadows of your real strength. Okay.
yeah.
Yes. So yes, we all have these God-given abilities. And when we open to receive them and we open to sharing them, we can, what's the word? Make heaven on earth. Or we can bridge that separation. That's a perception anyway. So
Another idea came to mind about this person, Elon Musk, and then he's also considered to have a mental disorder that gives him this, and therefore he's not very good with communication with people. So they've made this, I don't know what's happening there. It's interesting to think about him. And I don't know if you're aware of that, but they.
yes, but remember, just remember that ingenious thinking is not the truth that shall set you free. So you can think of, for example, of Mozart, right? I mean, everybody thinks, oh, he was a musical genius. Okay. Well, that's not what he was. He was able to bring forth music that is so beautiful, okay, that it's communicating something much bigger than what we how we tend to see ourselves. Okay. So what he's sharing, and that goes for anything that we find inspiring. And Sonia and I were talking about this because we were watching the ice skating. And so anything that we find inspiring is going to, is in spirit. Okay, so it's bringing forth spirit. So it's bringing forth communication of oneness. So it's helping us to connect to our own spiritual self, our own true one self. Yeah. And I think we mentioned that about art last time, Connie, with your husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the other thing about knowledge. Okay, it's not open to interpretation. So although it says here that you can try to interpret meaning, but this is always open to error, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring truth into illusion. So what we're saying is, okay, you know, I'm reading Course in Miracles and I'm like, oh man, I don't understand any of this. Okay, but maybe this is what it means. Okay, so then I start using my imagination and I start making things up, okay, about what it means because I don't understand it at all. Okay, and so that's what it's saying is that if you don't understand it, just be okay with not understanding. Don't start trying to interpret the meaning that you don't understand, because remember what it said about that questioning, that the questioning part of the self cannot give itself meaningful answers. So if we try to understand A Course in Miracles with the part of the mind that asks questions, we're not going to understand it. So we have to be open to putting that part aside. Go ahead and ask a question, but then go to that place of stillness, okay, which is not the questioning mind. Okay, you go to the place of stillness to receive the answer. And that's how we communicate, or that's how our higher mind, Holy Spirit, communicates and comes through with the answer. Yes, and so the attempts to regard yourself as separated and unseparated at the same time. Yes, so we want to believe that we can be both spirit and ego at the same time, or that we can be both in spirit and with ego at the same time, which is not possible, because spirit is the release of separation, is the release of the belief in the ego. And so, yeah, so the result is just confusion. So let's see. Ingenuity is totally divorced from knowledge, because knowledge does not require ingenuity, because we receive it. Knowledge is, we just receive it. It's a gift. And that's why those talents that are God-given, we don't take credit for. Helen Schuckman did not take credit for writing the Course in Miracles, okay, because she just received it. So I don't know too much about the biography of, Beethoven or Mozart, but a lot of their music just came to them. So it's like, how can you take credit for that? I would say that about the book that I wrote too. It was a book that it felt like had already been written, and it was just a matter of me coming and putting the bits and pieces together. So it wasn't like, so it was something that was already done, and then I just brought it through to have a form, to give it form. Yeah.
I was listening to something John Lennon said last night in this very interesting documentary, that all of the music was in his head. It wasn't on paper. I mean, it was all in his head, and these things would just come. And he didn't write the music.
Yes,
Yeah.
so he was open to
Yeah.
receiving inspiration, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And then he would just, yeah.
Yeah. I guess
so
we all have that power.
We do. And you notice that he wasn't taking credit for it. He wasn't saying, oh, I came up with all these things in my head. He said, no, they were already there.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just opened his mind to it and received it. Yeah. 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 So, okay, the next paragraph. Sonia, I think.
Prayer is a way of asking for something. It is the medium of miracles. But the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. Once forgiveness has been accepted, prayer in the usual sense becomes utterly meaningless. The prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request that you may be able to recognize what you already have. In electing perception instead of knowledge, you placed yourself in a position where you could resemble your Father only by perceiving miraculously. You have lost the knowledge that you yourself are a miracle of God. Creation is your source and your only real function.
Mhm. Okay, so when we pray, we are asking for something. And so it's a medium of miracles because we open ourselves to receiving from something that's beyond the little self that is in need of help. Um, and so, but it also says that the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those that have been forgiven have everything. And to recognize that we have forgiven is to recognize that we are not guilty, that it's really to accept the atonement, is to recognize that no, we cannot attack God, we cannot be separate from God, and therefore we are one with all of creation, and have not left our source. And that's why it's a recognition that we have everything, because we have not lost heaven, we have not lost our identity as the Son of God, we have not lost anything. We still have everything as how we were created. And so once forgiveness has been accepted, it's like having accepted the atonement. Then we have no need to ask for anything. We know we have everything, we are everything. And the prayer is really only that I may be able to recognize what I already have. So it's not that I'm really given anything. It's not that God is giving me something. It's that what I'm receiving is the undoing of the darkness that kept me from the light that shows me that I am in the presence of love. And that's because that's what I am. I'm not separate from it. So to elect perception instead of knowledge is to put ourselves in a position where we can only resemble our Father by perceiving miraculously, by having true perception. So, so we have to undo false perception to be able to have for the miracle to come through and show us true perception, because that's the way to return to knowledge is through true perception. So we have to bring all of our beliefs, all of our ideas into alignment with knowledge, and that's true perception, which is bringing our will in alignment with the will of God, which is opening up to the Holy Spirit to receive guidance from that link to God. Yeah. So what we have lost is the knowledge that we are a miracle of God, because we are creation, and creation is what we are, is our source. So we are one with God, and that would be our only real function, because there's nothing else. Anything else would just be illusion. It would be nothing. So, okay. Okay, next one. Next paragraph. Connie, I think.
Yeah, okay. The statement, quote, God created man in his own image and likeness, end of quote, needs reinterpretation. Quote unquote, image can be understood as, I'm going to pass on the quotes, thought and likeness as of a like quality. God did not create spirit in his own thought and of a quality like to his own.
Okay, Connie, read that again, number 3.
I'm sorry. Okay. Number 2.
No, 3.
God did. Did I say did not?
I think so.
Yeah, God did create spirit in his own thought and of a quality like to his own. There is nothing else. Perception, on the other hand, is impossible without a belief in more and less. At every level, it involves selectivity. Perception is a continual process of accepting and rejecting, organizing and reorganizing, shifting and changing. Evaluation is an essential part of perception because judgments are necessary in order to select.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, so perception is about differences. Okay, it's the belief in more and less, and that's how we compare. So we need to see differences in order to believe that there is something to select from, to perceive separation. And then, of course, we need to evaluate, to judge the different parts in order to choose. Okay, so, which kind of bread do I want to buy today? Am I going to go for the wheat, or am I going to go for the white? Okay, I have to, well, one has more calories, one has less calories. I have to weigh all these things. So the perception is a belief in separation. So and so for God, there is no perception, because there is no differences. We are all, let's see, we are, God created us, created spirit. So God, the first line says God created man. Okay, and the reinterpretation is God did create spirit. And so when we recognize we are spirit, we bypass all of the differences of man, woman, child, adult, color of skin. We completely release all of the separation, all the judgment, all the discrimination, all the inequality. So yeah, God did create spirit in his own thought and of a like quality to his own. So we are all completely the same. One creation. Boom. Okay. There's no conflict. That's the world of peace right there. So and ultimately that's what knowledge is. And true perception is the vision with the Holy Spirit that sees only the self as he was created, as spirit, guiltless, because there was no separation, innocent. So it's the innocent perception. And the problem is that we're confusing. In the world, we use judgment so much that, and we consider choices to be, they're based on our judgments, and we consider that to be will, but it's not will. Okay, because we're not really choosing between two different things. If everything is spirit, okay, the difference I have made between wheat bread and white bread are completely meaningless. Okay. Oh, so much for my taste and preferences, and
But they're so different.
well, of course, we want to. Yeah, what was that line that we read last time? Truth cannot deal with error that we want. Okay, so if we want to perceive differences, we are going to perceive differences. Okay, and truth is not going to just come in and wipe them away. No, we are exercising free will. Okay, but that separation comes with also perceiving ourselves as separate. It's not just that I'm going to perceive a difference between a brown piece of bread and a white piece of bread. I'm going to perceive a difference between a brown skinned person and a white skinned person. Okay. So, yeah. Anyway. Okay, my turn. And Teresa just joined us, so let's see. Yeah. So what happens to perceptions if there are no judgments and nothing but perfect equality? Well, perception becomes impossible. Truth can only be known. All of it is equally true. And knowing any part of it is to know all of it. Only perception involves partial awareness. Knowledge transcends the laws governing perception because partial knowledge is impossible. It is all one and has no separate parts. You who are really one with it need but know yourself, and your knowledge is complete. To know God's miracles is to know Him. Okay, so I mean, we have our work cut out for us, because obviously, no judgments. Okay, so so there's perfect equality, no judgments, and perception becomes impossible. So if we strive for no judgment, we are really looking for knowledge, for truth, because truth can only be known. And remember what it said about judgments right above there, that yeah, that knowing is not open to interpretation. And let's see, it said something about judgment, because perception is fundamentally judgmental. So yeah, or maybe it was in the last section where it said that.
Paragraph 7, number 8, evaluation is an essential part of perception because judgments are necessary in order to select.
Thank you, Teresa. Yes, yeah. So yeah, so if we can work on judgment, and the thing about forgiveness is that it always, underneath it, there's always judgment. when I remember when I was trying to learn to forgive, because I learned forgiveness in a very non-forgiving way.
And we all, right?
Yeah. Because I was holding on to the judgment. I wanted to forgive someone, but I didn't want to let go of the judgment. So so yeah, if I can let go of the judgment, that automatically releases the unforgiveness. So okay, so any other questions there? Yeah, and you who are really one with it need but know yourself. And we've all heard that saying, right? like healer, know thyself, or, to thyself be true. So it's all about doing that inner journey to know what we are, and to be open to truth. And that means being open to letting go everything else that we've made up. Okay, number 9. Let's see, would you like to read, Teresa?
Sure. Forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. Correct perception of your brother is necessary because minds have chosen to see themselves as separate. Spirit knows God completely. That is its miraculous power. The fact that each one has this power completely is a condition entirely alien to the world's thinking. The world believes that if anyone has everything, there is nothing left. But God's miracles are as total as his thoughts because they are his thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes. So forgiveness, it's a really good way to define forgiveness. Forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. Okay. And so that's why we have to let go of the judgment, because the judgment is a desire to perceive things the way we want to perceive them, not the way they are. And once we do that, we distort what is, how one of the lessons says, I do not see things as they are now. So that's what judgment does, is it distorts, because we're using perception as a way to see things based on our past learning. So we're just projecting the past learning. We're not seeing things as they are now. And that's how we maintain the perception of separation, and therefore feel justified in not forgiving, in holding the grievance. And so if we want to heal, if we want our mind to be healed and to be free of fear, and to be at peace, then forgiveness is the way here. That's what the Course teaches. And Jesus taught that too. Forgiveness is the way. So because correct perception of your brother is necessary, we have to correct the error of perceiving our brother as separate from us. Because otherwise we will see them as a body, and we will see ourselves as a body rather than a mind, rather than a thought of God. And with that, we lose awareness of our connection, of our, we lose the awareness of what Spirit knows. Spirit knows God completely. And that's why the miracle comes through the part of the mind, the right mind, that's open to the Holy Spirit, because the source of it is the love of God, which is God, which is the truth of what we are. And each of us has access and is this power. But because the world, let's see, believes in scarcity and believes that we are body or personality, ego, then we tend to think, oh, well, one person cannot have everything, because it means that they will have taken it from everybody else, because there's only, one pie that's not enough for everybody. So the idea of the world begins with limited resources. And then we go from there. So yeah. Okay, so any questions with that? Okay, number 10. As long as perception lasts, prayer has a place. Since perception rests on lack, those who perceive have not totally accepted the atonement and given themselves over to truth. Perception is based on a separate state, so that anyone who perceives at all needs healing. Communion, not prayer, is the natural state of those who know. God and his miracles are inseparable. How beautiful indeed are the thoughts of God who live in his light. Your worth is beyond perception because it is beyond doubt. Do not perceive yourself in different lights. Know yourself in the one light where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear. Okay, this is sort of kind of the gist of the book that I wrote. Let's see. Beyond Self-Esteem, Discovering Your Self-Worth, because these lines were really inspirational for me. Number 7, 8, and 9 there. So what it's saying is that as long as we use perception, we have not totally accepted the atonement. So there's going to be a sense of separation somewhere. And as long as there's perception, perception rests on lack, we're going to believe we are lacking in some way. And once we believe that, we're going to have a doubt about the worthiness of what we are. Because we're going to believe that what we make of ourselves determines our self-worth as the world perceives it. So that's why we're really driven to accomplish things in the world and to be seen as, let's see, productive members of society, or to be approved of by our peers or our community or our family, or, our social network. So because we think that we are really responsible for our own sense of worthlessness or worthiness, because we think it's part of the self-image. Okay, and what it's saying is that no, it's not part of the self-image, because you were created without an image, completely whole and without lack. And that's why your worth, number 7, is beyond perception, because it is beyond doubt. To perceive yourself in different lights. So to make images of ourselves, play roles, and then believe that that's what we are, is to perceive ourselves in different lights. And when we do that, we forget. So it says, know yourself in the one light. So know yourself in God, where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear. So we are a miracle, and therefore we are a blessing of love to the world. That's our true purpose in the world. Now we just have to practice the forgiveness piece. And, you know, and recognize that when we do judge, we are, you know, just a little bit delusional, and forgive that, and just be aware of it, so that we can remember again what is true about our creation. So, okay, so any questions? That's the end of that section 5, beyond perception. So it's a really, really good section because it really helps us to understand that the way we want to look at, you know, our purpose here, is to be able to not be fooled, I guess, by our own perceptions, because we have a way of believing our own interpretations and our own judgments, and then we become very loyal to those. Or if we're in a group, we become very let's see, we become very defensive and protective of those group beliefs, and values. And when we do that, of course, we are preserving the perception of separation, because we're not seeing ourselves as spirit. We're seeing ourselves. I think one of the most difficult things to disidentify from is our beliefs. We're not even aware most of the time. You know, it's easy to kind of like disidentify, like with objects, like, oh, you know, I you know, maybe I have a car that I really, oh, I just love my car, you know, so I really identify with it. I'm attached to it, you know, or sometimes people are really identified with their cell phone. You know, I have everything in there. I have all my pictures, and you know, if I lose it, oh my God, you know, it's the end of the world kind of thing. You know, so we can kind of see when we are, you know, like fixated or obsessed with things, but we can do that with emotions too, or we can do that with thoughts, or we can do that with past events. You know, we can do that with beliefs, you know, because we'll say, look, I have this belief, and as long as you, and there's a line, as long as you don't cross that, hey, I'm going to love you. Okay. But the minute you cross that, okay, forget it. I'm a different person now. So we have a way of saying, I'm a very forgiving person, but don't cross that line. Okay. And so that's not true forgiveness, because we're making exceptions. So we're actually making forgiveness special. And it's saying, my forgiveness is creative, and I'm going to make you special if you don't cross this line and you just do what I say. Okay. But if you're outside of this line, okay, you're not special to me anymore. Okay. So it's all just ego stuff. So I'm also bringing in forgiveness and all of that into the whole ego stuff. But, you know, the Course in Miracles is really, really clear, you know, no exceptions. Okay. You can't just have a tiny bit of unforgiveness and be in spirit. You can't combine them, period. So, so I think for that reason, it's really good. It's really helpful in training the mind to perceive correctly. So anyway, okay. So if there's nothing else, I think we could probably stop here. Yeah. Anything?
Yep.
Nope. We're all good. Oh, okay. Well, next time we're going to look at judgment and the authority problem. So, section 6. Okay, well, thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
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 Bye.